Hey there, it's time for the show, the Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another Miami edition of the Tatiana Show. I'm here on my porch enjoying the sunshine. It has been hidden away behind some kind of building, so I have semi-decent lighting. My room is very messy. I'm moving into my own place, so it is not suitable for any kind of purposes. But today we're going to be back with a new Tatiana Show. We haven't had one in a while because of all this excitement. And not only am I joined by my host, Josh Shigala from Vaultoro, who has some announcements which we're going to just tease you about. We're not going to tell you anything yet, maybe until the end of the show. But the reason why we're having Tron Black on of Ravencoin is because, number one, Tron is cool and we've hung out before. So obviously that makes him a candidate for the Tatiana Show. But also because I put a question to everybody, and maybe we can also unpack this all together, three of us. Why is Elon promoting Doge and not Bitcoin? And I got some good answers. But one of them, what somebody said was he should be talking about Ravencoin or something. And everybody just piled on. There was 100 people that were a fan of this project. And I've heard about Ravencoin for a while. I especially have respect for it because I outsource all of my technical information to Nathan Hawk. And Nathan is a huge Ravencoin project fan. He introduced me to the Komodo guys and to some other projects that are really neat. So, of course. But also, I've heard Bruce talk about it. And I've thought about how you guys have tokenization opportunities. And so I wanted to get an update from the more technical side and just get your take on it, Tron. So thanks very much for joining us on the Tatiana Show today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So super high level overview. Ravencoin was a code fork of Bitcoin. It actually came from the mind of Bruce Fenton, who you know and have talked to about it. It was a code fork. We changed some parameters. It runs a little bit faster than Bitcoin, has a little bit larger blocks. But the real goal was to make it to be able to create your own tokens, assets. And so we kind of took the best of Counterparty and Mastercoin and open assets, and we took that kind of the same idea. We were able to remove some of the clunkiness because those all rode on top of Bitcoin, but Bitcoin was kind of oblivious to their existence. And so when you're putting stuff into what's essentially the comments field of Bitcoin, so the op return, you still needed to send a little bit of Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin network said, I don't need to send this transaction. I don't want to send this transaction or store it forever. So we were able to kind of remove that, those conditions and things like that. It makes it a little bit easier, actually quite a bit easier, to create your own tokens. So that's what we did. So that launched on Bitcoin's 9th birthday. It issued with a Genesis text. In the Genesis block from the same publication that Bitcoin did, where we actually found on that day an article about companies, a new generation of using Bitcoin, which was pretty awesome. We launched it about 11 months later. We added the ability to create your own assets on top of Ravencoin. So an asset is just your own token. So you create a token. Most people are familiar with ERC20 on Ethereum. Works kind of like that, only you get to pick your own name. It's guaranteed. Whereas on Ethereum, you have your own name, but it's 40 random characters, or not random characters, but characters that are the hash of the smart contract. This way, you get to choose your own name. So it's kind of works like a domain name system, but the code itself and the network itself is like a DNS registry. So whoever gets it first gets it. You can create any amount of tokens from 1 to 21 billion. You can have them as divisible as you want, from non-divisible. You can't divide them at all. They come in single units, down to Bitcoin's divisibility, so 8 decimal places. You can decide whether or not you can issue more as the issuer, like it's the one that created it. You can decide that. And then if you say it's not reissuable, then that will be the exact amount forever.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I have some questions. I'm lining them up. Keep going.
Okay, go. Yeah. Okay, one more thing. You can attach what your token represents to an IPFS file, meaning a file that can't be tampered with or can't be changed. And you can put, that could be a 4K movie or a PDF or a text file or a JSON, anything you want. But you basically say what your token represents, and that's kind of an important and valuable feature of Ravencoin.
Okay,
Now I'm done.
So that's a really very comprehensive overview. I appreciate that. So I've also been tinkering with tokens for a while, and the biggest problem, I think, and I think one of the advantages that you guys have with Bruce on your team, is understanding the legacy system and working with basically what the restrictions are, because the legal framework has been completely unclear. It's been changing. It's really difficult to build on that tech, right? And to also be able to communicate to all the different parties that need that. So can you talk a little bit about the legal restrictions and like the regulations? And for example, are you guys a member of Perry Ann Boring's group, the Digital Chamber of Commerce? Do you have people that are trying to talk to government actively to get them to understand this? What is that like for a company of your size and, scope?
Yeah. So one thing, we're not a company, just flat out not a company, in the same way that Bitcoin's not a company. There is a foundation that consists of a board and basically I'm basically kind of running it, but that's it. There's currently there's developers, but they're all volunteer or people donating to the foundation. We're helping to pay them. But Ravencoin is not a company. We never raised any funds. And that speaks to the legal. It was created kind of during the time, kind of in that 2017, 2018 timeframe, launched on January 3rd of 2018. But as you know, that was the time where people were doing ICOs, right? So creating tokens, selling them for crypto, taking the money, and then basically promising stuff, right? And the stuff that they promised was typically in some sort of white paper or PDF or something like that. Turns out that that's security, right? You're taking money, it's an investment contract, you're promising something, it's based on the efforts of others. It basically hits all the four Howey tests, which is the Supreme Court case that basically said that whether or not something was a security. And there's these four questions. So Ravencoin was created, and we didn't take any money. It was launched with mining. Everybody could mine. It was launched very similar to Bitcoin, right? There was no dev set aside, things like that. Now we did have, thankfully, support from Medici Ventures, which was part of Overstock, and they basically graciously funded the development and things like that. So that's kind of how it came into existence, and not through an ICO. So that made it, we'll call it cleaner from a legal perspective, just as the platform itself, right? So some of the platforms still have some regulatory overhang. Ethereum's kind of been cleared kind of through a weird thing with Hinman, saying it kind of passed this kind of weird threshold of like it's now decentralized enough. Some of the other projects, XRP and things like that, are still having kind of issues with that. So that's the platform itself. Now, what you create on top of it may or may not be a security. And it completely depends on whether or not you kind of hit those tests, right? If you take something, create your own token, right, which costs under $100 to like $80 to create your own token, and you've created it, and now you start selling it with the promise that it's going to represent something that that some group is going to eventually deliver. That becomes a security. So that falls under the SEC's kind of like their purview. If you basically create a token and say, hey, this is my kid's allowance, right? They get these tokens and they can turn these into their dad for something. That's not a security. So the token itself isn't necessarily security. It's really what the token represents. If the token represents, maybe an hour of your time or something like that, then it's more like a prepaid gift card, probably not a security. So it kind of depends on whether it's, going to be equity in a company and things like that. So yeah, if it's a security, then there's a whole bunch of other stuff, and people have heard about Reg D, which is where you sell it to people who are wealthy enough. There's new ones, Reg CF, which is Reg Crowdfund. As long as it's on a platform that's run by a broker-dealer, then you can do it, and you can raise, was up to $1 million, but it just changed to $5 million. So there's a whole bunch of new changes that were kind of like, I think the law was in 2012 that said, hey, we need to have new options for fundraising. And it took the SEC, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years to kind of get there, but they're there now. And so Reg CF, Reg A plus for Tier 1, Tier 2, they all have different levels, but they basically are exemptions to full registration.
So what is the cost of that right now, right? Because it used to be, in order to do that, it was, I don't know, $50,000 or something more, like even more. Now it's come down to, what do you think, like 5 or 10,000? Do you guys send them to the lawyers and then the lawyers figure it out? Or how does a company, let's say, because I think there's a lot of companies that might want to take advantage of something like this, right? But they don't know what they're doing. And they might get some scammy lawyer. Like, how do you know that their lawyer's good in giving you a certain threshold without actually becoming responsible for it, right? I mean,
yeah. I can't speak to sending him to the wrong lawyer, but I would hope that they know enough to keep them out of legal trouble. But also, I think it speaks to another problem, which is a lot of this is confusing, right? I mean, the whole ICO thing was just people going, look what crypto makes possible. It allows the possibility to hold a token that represents a share of something. Well, that's sort of a transfer agent's job. And it kind of needed, a transfer agent license. And it was, a lot of times it was just an attorney with a spreadsheet in a back room. And then there was some other companies that would do it on a database. But really, crypto kind of does all of that without having to have that. And so I would say that our laws and what crypto makes possible are still in conflict. They're still gear grinding, and there's still things that, if crypto existed before, that those laws may or may not have needed to be there. So
those laws are absolutely bonkers. They're absolutely bonkers. I can't believe it. I can't believe that how much overreach the state has over individuals wanting to take a punt on a startup. And it is so different to someone selling oranges in an orange grove and saying that they're going to, like the Howey test, where that comes from, or lemons or whatever it was. But, nowadays you can look through the GitHub. You can see if it's really legit. And of course, a lot of people don't know how to do that. But as they burn their hand trying, they soon figure out and get educated on how to evaluate projects properly. Of course, when everyone jumps into Dogecoin, which is producing 1.4 million coins a day, or 14 million, coins a day, and they still don't understand it. There goes my thesis. But at the end of the day, people do need to figure out risk and learn risk again, because I think this culture, the Western culture, has just been obsessed with de-risking and having big government de-risk life for them. And now they're walking around like, one coin. Like they literally don't know a scam when they're yelling at their face, this is a scam, do you want to buy it?
I completely agree with you. I think we have gotten to the point where people can't evaluate risk. We had an option, or we had one possibility with the ICO thing, to let it go, and then you would have had a whole bunch of people burned, which they were anyway. They were probably burned quicker and harder because of the SEC kind of coming in and shutting down like real projects, mediocre projects, and the scam projects kind of all at the same time, not distinguishing. And so that hurt investors, which is really against their kind of what they're supposed to be doing. If they had let it go, this is my thesis. I think a lot of people would have been burned. Probably might have taken a little bit more time to be burned. Maybe the same people would have been burned, but they would have been burned. And another thing would have come out of it, which is more like an eBay ratings over these projects. I mean, there were already a couple of those that you could go to, and they were people that would go talk to the project builders and say, hey, these guys are legit. They've done projects before. Here's their thing, but they have these risks and things like that. And then you evaluate them, and risk-free investment, it seems like what they're trying to get to. It's like, all the accounting, everything, you've listed all the possible risks that could happen. And so now it's your problem. And to have a little bit riskier investments that have a little bit, we'll call it risk reward, right? Those are kind of opposites, right? You have the risk reward ratio. I think we need to get to that level, right, where you can risk more and potentially have more reward, and some win, some lose. VCs are kind of, I guess, trained to kind of do that, but definitely not the retail investor. And I think that where you have now the ability to invest $5 or $10 because crypto tracks all of this stuff, I think this is a possibility. But in the U.S., it's probably not going to happen.
Well, there's a lot of appetite for it. Like, look at all these people eating Doge. Like, they're like, Doge it's challenging everything I've ever learned about Austrian economics, but also fulfilling it in its own weird way. The fact that basically, if they believe that it is money, it shall be. And I don't know what to make of it. I kind of like it. I kind of hate it. In a way, I think maybe that, like, getting wrecked may teach some of them to maybe look at Bitcoin or something more realistic. Like, is Elon even supposed to be pumping Doge? Can he do that? Because he's the guy that's, like, famous. And maybe, I don't know. And is he doing it because he should be pumping Bitcoin, but he's not allowed to? So now he's trying to do this secret thing. Like, this whole thing is a wild west. And Doge, I think, kind of upsets it, too. It's almost the ultimate troll to them trying to control that, like, investor opportunity that is there.
I think it's a little bit of... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's kind of an interesting question. Is he allowed to pump Bitcoin? Because he's not allowed to pump Tesla. Right? He's gotten in trouble for it before.
Tesla's a security.
But he's not allowed to pump Bitcoin because that's on...
So they're regulated by two different entities, right? So Tesla is regulated by the SEC, and you have all kinds of rules about not saying anything about it. Commodities don't have the same level of rules, and so those are the CFTC, and it is kind of like, I don't know if pumping's the word, but yeah, I mean, talking about about something, I guess is more allowed. I don't know the rules as much about CFTC, but I have not seen the same level of enforcement where if you said, hey, my company's going to do this, and you just make stuff up or tweet out about it, or it doesn't get out equally, meaning it goes out through a press release or through Edgar or something, one of those systems, then, it's kind of like disproportionate. People aren't seeing it at the same time and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of rules about disclosures and how they can be released.
The rules are so dumb. I just can't get my head around it. Like, de-risking investment is like saying that you want a dark fluoro color. It's just dumb. It's the worst thing ever. But back to Ravencoin. I am really interested in one of the things, which was this sort of fair mining and trying to get, this was always the holy grail back in 2013 when ASICs was, or the graphics miners were at large and they were starting to get challenged with Butterfly Labs and stuff. And of course, you have other coins that are like, we're going to make ASIC resistance, which never seem to really, truly come to fruition. There's always, if it gets big enough, the ASICs will find a way to try to, and I'm interested to see what you guys did on your path to try and destroy the ASICs.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing we did was we used, so Dash, for example, had 11 algorithms, which makes it a little bit harder to create an ASIC because you have to create, all 11 on a chip, right? So X11, it was 11 algorithms chained together. So the hash of one goes into the other, into the other, into the other. So 11 in a row. And so people kind of extended on that. There was X13, they added two more. It was X15, they added two more. It was X17, they added two more. They were basically just copying Dash and adding additional algorithms. So we were trying to figure out how to do it, and Bruce had some ideas that weren't going to work because you have to be able to, when you're done, everybody needs to be able to check it really quick, and so you needed to know these algorithms, and so what order and all of that. So we basically were kind of brainstorming on this and said you could do it. You could do different algorithms in different orders, right? Just confuse it so it confuse the order. But since everybody needs to know the order to check it, you'd have to have some sort of database or something that said, hey, for this block, we're going to do it in this order. So we said, well, we have a database. It's the blockchain, right? So we'll just use the previous block hash, which we have to shove into the block anyway. We'll use the last 8 bytes of that, and each byte has 8 bits. And so we'll take those, split it up into 4-bit nibbles, And so that each number, that'll give you a number from 0 to 15, and we'll just reorder the algorithms. So we'll take the algorithms in the order that those last 8 bytes of the hash appear in the previous block hash, which we have to have anyway because we're building on top of that. And so that's what we did. So that's X16R. It reorders the algorithms every time. And it actually worked out a little bit better than we expected because we didn't remove duplicates, right? So it wasn't like you could have the same algorithm 2 or 3 times in a row if it just randomly happened. And that made it so that if you're trying to shove the hash down a pathway and you wanted it to kind of go really fast in parallel, you needed to have multiple space on the die to allow that algorithm to exist multiple times because of the potential for it being used multiple times. It also because it was random.
Let's just quickly break that down for the folks at home. Bitcoin generally, when you hear about mining, it's a difficult question that's hard to do and easy to verify. Kind of like a Rubik's Cube, it's hard to do for most people, but it's easy for everyone to go, oh yeah, you did it. It's pretty easy. And what Tron is saying is that if no one knows what a finished Rubik's Cube is meant to look like, then it's hard to verify. So you need to also tell them what they're looking for. And that's a really interesting way to look at it, especially the fact that a blockchain is a chain because you're incorporating the hash of the last block into the next one, so that you can have almost a Merkleized tree. I can't help but get eggheady here, folks. I'm sorry, but it's very, very interesting, and I really find it fascinating taking on chip manufacturers. The problem I see, and tell me if you think this is also the same thing. Once your project gets crazy big, there's nothing stopping people creating chips to make that more efficient.
And that's kind of what happened. I mean, we actually had quite a bit of success, and we're kind of moving up the rank, and they did create an ASIC, and we saw it, and but it wasn't an ASIC like an ASIC for Bitcoin, which is running 1,000x of video card or 10,000x of video card. It was more efficient. So the people who were buying the ASIC had an edge over the people who were running it on video cards. And originally we actually had it running on the CPU, but eventually went to video cards, and those were faster. And then somebody created an ASIC, and it was maybe 80% faster, 2x faster, something like that. It was faster. But if someone has cheap power and they can do the ASICs and they're getting that, then they keep running those, they keep building those and running those until the GPU people are like, it's not really worth it unless I'm using my parents' electricity. So it eventually did get to the point where the GPU guys were like, it's not really worth it for me. And then that means you're kind of more, not dominated by, but you have a lot more ASICs on there than you'd like. So we said, well, the other problem with ASICs is you make these chips and then they're fixed. And then you come along and just change the algorithm a little bit, and they're hosed. And so that's what we did. We just changed the algorithm a little bit. So that was X16R2, and it was just a tweak. We added a hash here and there.
So another question I have, just to get away from the mining a little, is a lot of people that create coins or tokens are trying to become DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations for the folks at home, and this takes a specific part of the smart contract world of Ethereum and some of these other smart contract players. Are you guys also dancing down that road?
We're not
being able to be a bit more complex with the coins that people issue themselves.
We're not. So we have we have restricted assets and tags, which is a way to solve a particular problem for securities issuance, because you need to make sure your security doesn't go to people that especially during that first year that aren't accredited and things like that. So we have a kind of this other type of token that we've created that has the ability for the issuer to have more control over it. So we have that. But other than that, there is no smart contract. Now, we are starting to play in the smart contract world where they're hopping Raven value as like P-Raven over to the Binance Smart Chain, for example. So if you want to borrow against it or lend and things like that, that's becoming possible now. But not to take our tokens and Yeah, so there's a bridge. Yep. So you can create P-Raven. You take Raven, it locks it up, and it uses a bunch of computers that are running a trusted execution environment to sign it, and moves it over to the Binance Smart Chain, and then you have P-Raven over there, and you can do things with that over there. But it's really to take the value. We should be able to do the same thing with tokens, but we need one more feature, which was in Bitcoin which we have on Ravencoin. It's called pay to script hash. This is kind of getting too techy, but pay to script hash allows you to do multi-sig.
I'm with you. What is
it? All right. So
I think Bitcoin's got it too, right?
Yeah, and we have pay to script hash too for Raven, for Raven token, but we didn't have pay to script hash for assets. And so we're adding that. That's now on our testnet. It's been added. It's going through a security review. We're having a third-party security company review the code and kind of do tests. But once we have that, then you can do multi-sig to basically lock up to multi-sig hold assets, which can be good for securities and things like that, but also to be able to hold them and then hop them over to another chain where you could use, pancake swap and different DeFi types of things with the assets. So we think that'll be coming. We're just building kind of the base layer for that so that it's possible. And then other people are building, the second layer stuff that allows those other things.
Wow.
Nice.
So what kind of partnerships are you guys exploring right now?
So we have partnerships only in the sense that, so it's a completely permissionless system, right? Again, there's no company. We have partnerships only in the sense that people kind of contact me and they say we want to do this, and it's like, go for it. Code's available, platform's available, but they'll ask for help and kind of provide information and point them in the right direction, things like that. But so Equistart, you may know Sean Owen. They're issuing equities and things on, especially private equities, where it's like just the startup, the founders are creating it, and so their cap table will be issued on Ravencoin assets, so that it's like kind of guaranteed, and you don't go like 5 years down the road and kind of figure out when you've finally been sold that people think they own what they don't own and things like that. So the Ravencoin assets are really, really, really good for tracking that, because you can't lose an asset. You can burn an asset, right? But then it's sitting in the burn address, but you can't lose one. They're perfectly tracked, right? They're in these addresses. Someone could lose their private keys to the address, but you can't lose an asset. So we have an audit script, for example, that will go through all the assets, say how many were issued and where are they, and add them all up and just make sure that those match, right? So we run that periodically. So you can't lose them.
So this is a question I have. In terms of, I've always had this as a problem. Like, what if I don't know, Elon put all his Tesla stocks onto Ravencoin and said, right, everything's on Raven now, and then someone hacks his wallet.
Yep.
Obviously Elon's not short. Like, he's still got his shares, but now he needs to go to court. The judge needs to go, no, let's burn them. And like, how does that work? This is the problem that I've always seen with tying equities.
Yeah. So that is an issue. So we have two different types of assets. One is kind of the original one, which you can't lose. You can issue more unless you lock it and things like that. We have another one that's designed for really works better with equities. It's called restricted assets. And you can restrict it in the sense that they only go to addresses that you've tagged, or you can remove that restriction. They can go to anywhere. But basically you tag addresses, and tagging addresses, kind of assigning a tag to it. Tags could be, hey, this address has been KYC, this address has been accredited, things like that. It's very non-crypto in the sense of like, hey, wait a minute, what happened to the freedom that we were doing? What happens to being able to move it anywhere in the world? That kind of thing. It isn't that, right? But also they're very well distinguished within Ravencoin. They start with a $sign, whereas the regular assets can't. So they're very well distinguished. But also the issuer has some superpowers. The issuer can freeze all movement of those assets, just like freeze trading, and then also freeze trading by like one address, for example. Now, they can always do this. They've
That's
always
really
been able to do this with the spreadsheets that are in the back of the lawyer's office, right? They can always, because you have to go to that lawyer and say, I want to sell to Bob. And they go, oh, Bob's not accredited. Sorry, you can't do that. Or I want to, or somebody stole them. It's like, okay, we'll just freeze those and we'll reissue some others. That exists in that world. And also the shares, there's legal stuff around them, and the ability to freeze them and things like that is kind of a requirement. So we have that platform that exists on Ravencoin, but it's very clearly distinguished from the tokens that don't have that restriction, right? If you create your own asset, doesn't start with a $, then it's going to move just like Bitcoin. You can move it around. Nobody can stop it. Nobody can stop, but we have both of those worlds. We also have an NFT world where you create an asset with a hashtag in it, and then whatever you want after the hashtag, and that has to be a unique name. And then there's only one, guaranteed, meaning the software itself will guarantee that there will never ever be one with that name. And so we kind of play in the NFT world. We play in the securities world, which is restricted assets. We play in the other ones can be used. People have tokenized wine futures, gift cards. We play in, people have tokenized art, certificates of authenticity. So the platform is there to do all kinds of different things, and people have different ideas on how it should be used. And it's kind of unstoppable like Bitcoin, but if you're the issuer on a restricted asset, you can control stuff.
Yeah, fascinating. Tatiana, would you want to play in that same circle?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how I have all these random friends now who are coming to me and they're telling me, oh, I want to invest in something. And I'm annoyed by them because they just want these get rich quick schemes. And I'll send them information. I'll say, look, check out this project, check out that project. And my own personal internet investment approach is that I like to invest in projects that I kind of understand what's going on and that I know the people behind them. I'm not trying to give anybody any investment advice, but what do you think is a good thing? Because people are saying, oh, I'm doing some research, and then they're watching certain traders. And I'm not sure that the traders are giving 100% the best advice either, although they probably are more informed about when something's going to pump or not. But I think that if you just look at a project and you look at the team, and that's what I find captivating about tokenization is you can look at pretty transparently what it is that you're getting into, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
So I think it's awesome that a project like Doge with no developers and no work on the code can function as well as it is and become number 4. That says something about the technology behind it, right? I mean, it has a goofy meme. It's just like the craziest, most ridiculous thing. And yet the technology, and to be honest, I learned more about it just this last week. I thought, oh, it's a fork of Bitcoin. It wasn't. It was like a fork of Lucky Coin, which is a fork of Litecoin, which is a fork of, it was like this chain of forks. It was a fork originally of something that basically did a random block reward, right? It was somewhere between 1 and 1 million or something like that, some ridiculous number, right? Where you solve a block and you get some ridiculous amount, or you get almost nothing. And it was a fork of that originally, and then eventually it was tweaked. And so it doesn't have the same decay curve that Raven does and Bitcoin does and Litecoin does, where it's going to decay down to just keep having and having and having. It doesn't have that, so it's kind of has infinite supply. But the supply is somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5%, and that will decrease.
The most important thing is that the Dogecoin QT client changed the font to Comic Sans. That was so it was exactly the Bitcoin client.
All right,
except
guys, you guys are nerding out too hard. All I'm saying is that the Dogecoin could become the people's currency, and it will outsmart all of us. I'm not sure about this, but I kind of like it. I'm kind of watching it to see what happens. The other day I wanted to buy some Doge. It was 64 cents. I was like, no, it's so embarrassing. Then it fell and I was like, good thing I didn't buy it. And now it's going back up. And I'm like, what the hell is going on with this crap? I can't take it.
Look,
I'm gonna stick with projects that I know, but I think I'm going to buy a little bit of Ravencoin now and a little bit of, wait, can I buy Ravencoin? Is it illegal in the States or some stupid thing or no?
No.
All right.
It's so Raven, the coin
Mm-hmm.
is like Bitcoin in the sense that it has the decay curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our first halving will be in January of next year. Yeah, it's a commodity like Bitcoin, like Litecoin. It's burned to create assets, so it has a use case. Um, and you can buy it on Binance US, Binance. We're trying to get on Ravencoin. We just finished Rosetta API, not on Ravencoin, on Coinbase. We're trying to
Okay.
get on Coinbase. We just finished Rosetta API, which is one of the requirements. So hopefully they'll see your show and say, "Oh yeah, it's time." So
All right. I like
did,
that idea.
did,
I'm down with that.
did they have a problem with the getting? I heard Coinbase has a problem with coins burning. Is that an issue, or is it because the way it burns is through creation of asset?
Uh, good question. I wasn't aware of that, but I mean, lots of Bitcoin was burned, for example, to create XCP, to create Counterparty. That was burned.
Yeah,
Anybody can burn any of them, right? Just send to an
just
address
send to an
that's
address that
just
doesn't have a key. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
yeah.
So I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, just because I've heard in the past that SEC has had problems with white papers that burn tokens because it's an artificial way of driving up the price. But in your case, it's definitely not, because it's a function of utilization, which is at the end of the day,
It is, yeah.
utility.
It is a utility, and we the problem is we have a like a domain name space, right? You create your own name when you create a token, and if there wasn't a cost to that, then people would try to create every name, right? They would just create them all and so there's a real cost to kind of domain name squatting or Raven asset squatting. Because you have to burn 500 of your Raven, and originally that was penny or whatever, so it was like $5, and now that's I don't know $75 or something like that. So the price has gone
Right.
up. So
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
All right.
It's a really
So, are you guys doing any talks or anything? Like, I know that there's usually Satoshi Roundtable, but are you guys going to any conferences? We have Bitcoin 21 coming up. We've got Shitcoin
yeah.
2021. We've got this one that just happened in Miami Crypto Experience. I didn't see enough of the Ravencoin reps there, but I mean, I don't know what's going on. Are you guys seeing people? What's happening?
Yeah, so I was just in Austin for Texas Blockchain Week, so we did that. So that was good. We typically go to World CryptoCon. Is another pretty big one. We also have pretty regular virtual meetups. We have a Ravencoin campus, which you can get to at just download.ravencoincampus.org. And it's a virtual environment that's being generously paid for by one of the Ravencoin fans, Blockchain Tiger. And it's a virtual environment where people can go in. We've had meetups with 500 plus people from around the world. It has 2 theaters. It has a concert hall. We've been doing NFT auctions pretty much every Friday. There've been NFT auctions with a live auctioneer, just with the pattern and everything. So you can see clips of those. They're on Twitter and things like that. So live auctions of artwork. So a lot of artists have kind of come in and created NFTs and are being featured in these auctions.
Well, send me any artists that you have. I've been more interested in all the art stuff lately because I'm in Miami, so there's all this NFT stuff. But I want to ask them, why do they choose Ravencoin and like what that experience is like? So that would be really neat.
Okay,
Maybe we can all talk about it in Miami.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you some links.
Cool, neat. All right. Well, anything else, Josh, that's on your mind before we let Tron get back to all this important work at Ravencoin we can go up to the moon?
Tron, it was really great to meet you, and I wish you all the best, your team. And I mean, it's a decentralized team. When I say that, it's always a weird thing to say, but at the end of the day, it's still a community that feel like they're a team, even though they're not.
It really is. I mean, the community is incredible. The developers that have kind of jumped in and just, especially in this last month, they've just jumped in and taken all the issues. Built Rosetta API, updated the thing. We've got a test net running now for a whole bunch of new features. Yeah, it's things are really moving, and then really it's all volunteers because there really isn't a Ravencoin like hired team at this point. It's kind of unique in that regard right now.
Yeah, very good, very very cool.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
So Telegram chats, all that's going to be in the links below. Anything going on at Vaultoro, Josh, you want to tell us about before we sign off or no?
Oh, we've got so much stuff happening. It's crazy. I'm working silly hours, hardly getting any sleep, but it's all for a good cause. There's lots of really cool stuff. But we're going to be doing some early. So if you want to find the hot gossip, join up to Vaultoro.
Yeah, that's the better idea. Sign up there. I've got my newsletter. Tron's got his news coming out, and the Ravencoin army supporting. I love it.
So we do have a foundation website, just ravencoin.foundation. And the footer's like this monster footer with all the links, and it'll spoke you out to just all kinds of projects and different things that are being built on top. So,
perfect. I like that.
Footer.
All right,
yeah,
I like
it. A big footer.
All right, that's enough of that. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It was a good preview. Maybe we'll do like some TC Ravencoin crossover action. I'd love that. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you for tuning into the Tatiana Show.
What's the point of all this technology without a little love in our lives? Our hosts, Tatiana Moroz and Lauren Kasovitz, have come together to bring you Proof of Love. Go to proofoflovecast.com. The Tatiana Show has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond. Hey there, it's time for the show, the Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto. We gotta think and reflect and use lots of intellect with our hearts when we work together. I know that it can be so hard out there, looking all around and saying that life ain't fair. So that is why we will fight and stay up late at night, listening to the Tatiana Show. Thank you for listening to the Tatiana Show. Please follow us on Twitter at Queen Tatiana or on Facebook and Instagram at Tatiana Moroz Music. More episodes can be found at thetatianashow.com, and make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. You are listening to The Tatiana Show. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on The Tatiana Show is intended as financial advice, legal advice, or really anything other than entertainment. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're listening to us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on or of any sponsors or any affiliate products you may hear about on this show.